This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Well, hello there. Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross today, as it is Thursday, and this is what we like to do on Thursdays. Although last week we did bring in Adam Winkler, and we plan to do that more often. But Garrett and I really just kind of want to hone in on one topic here today, because we have some other things to do, but we really wanted to do a show. So Deion Sanders is a lightning rod for criticism, obviously. And Garrett and I will have some small talk here in a second. But I want to talk about the Deion Sanders and the PIF fund and the coach who resigned, and kind of put some clarity based on what's in that story, and talk about the bigger picture, because I do think that this is going to be a thing, because people in this, and I'm not defending Deion Sanders, I'm just trying to go through the facts of the case on this and kind of explain it, because people are going to see it and they're going to say, oh, Deion went to the PIF to get money. That is not necessarily the case, and it appears that he really didn't have much to do with it, and it's not. But we'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that in a second. I do want to talk to Garrett about something that's been plaguing him for weeks now, and that he has broken glasses.
Yeah.
And when will your new glasses be in?
So I am hoping that they will be here by tomorrow or Saturday, because I went in last Saturday to Stanton, like we talked about, and I did the exam and everything, which is it's really weird. I don't know when the last time you've went and had your eyes checked, but
I get them checked about every 18 months.
Okay, so I went, and how they do theirs, it's like virtual, where you go into a room and there's a doctor on the TV and they control everything. So that process made me feel like I was in the Jetsons, which was pretty intriguing. But I was able to get them. I tried contacts. Remember, I was talking about my sister-in-law had kind of convinced me to do it, and so I get a pair, and I'm trying to put it in, and it was just a complete disaster, and it wasn't for me. So I decided to go with 2 pairs of glasses, and they it's going to take a minute. They said it could be up to 10 days for them to come through. So, but they said it typically doesn't take that long. So hopefully this week, by tomorrow, I can have my glasses, because I'm tired of this.
Well, I mean, we're all rooting for you.
I know.
We're all rooting for you.
You thought I did not go.
I was upset with you. I was genuinely about to give you, and I don't, Smokey likes to do this because he's been a dad for 40 years, right? Yes. So I'm not a dad at all. Or a big brother or anything like that. I don't really like to do it, but sometimes I've sat down with people and had to give the big bro speech.
Yeah.
I was about to give you the big bro speech of hey man, do you need me to go with you? Are you scared? What's going on? I also had to do this to Smokey to get him to get a shot once.
That does not surprise me.
Where it's and here's the thing, Smokey, and this is my theory on it, and I hope he sees this. I don't think he may come across to someone who's I don't know about these shots. The only reason he doesn't know about them is I think he's still scared of shots.
Oh, he is.
Which fine. A lot of people are. Shots suck. They suck. But I promise you, most of you who might be anti-vaxxers, if you just trace it back to its roots, you just don't want a shot. If it was a pill, you'd be totally.
Well, how much of that though is what was those shots that they were giving out back in the tetanus shots or whatever that was really painful?
Yeah.
So they probably all have a bunch of shock from that.
No, I mean there are I mean you can get a very painful shot, but I promise you if you really trace back your roots to any kind of I don't like this, and then you grow it out to it's the government, it starts out with I just don't like it.
Well, there's also some things with the government if you look.
I mean, but that's of all the things that's if you get into that mode, I often think that most people Jenny McCarthy afraid of shots. So she makes up a reason why you shouldn't get shots. And And then people who are also afraid of shots, they're like, no. I've got a doctor also afraid of shots. And like,
I'm not
that's
afraid.
A weird thing.
Like, I'm not afraid of shots or like getting my blood drawn or anything. But if it comes down to like if I have to have blood work, I just can't look at it coming out of my arm. If I don't, I'm good. Like, it doesn't bother me, the feeling or anything. But the sight of blood, I'm not cool with.
Yeah, no. I had to get allergy shots when I was a little kid, like 7 or 8 years old. So I got used to it really quickly. And my mother was also, before she was a teacher for 25 years, but before that she was a nurse for 15 years. Yeah. Maybe longer. But like she was a nurse for like, the half her life was nurse, half her life was teacher.
Right.
So those are her two jobs. And she had no sympathy for me when it came to any kind of doctor's appointment. None. Like, because she'd seen it. Like, she'd seen way worse. So, like, when you're a little kid and your mom's a nurse and you're like, I don't want to get one shot.
Right.
And she'd be like, well, I saw someone get a liver transplant once. And you're like,
I think that plays into it.
And the thing is, you're a kid and you're like, you have to, like, sit on it. But you're like, I know it's different.
See, I think that has something to do with it too. Because like me, before coming to work with y'all, I worked at the hospital for like 9 years. So every year we'd have to get a TB shot, and you just become so numb to things in the hospital that it's everyday normalcy that freaks other people out, and it's just weird to see how that unfolds.
Also, I will tell you this: when you have a nurse, especially a practicing, like a current nurse, like when I was a little kid and tried to fake sick, or if I was a little bit sick, where I'm like, I just really I don't feel good. I don't want to go to school. If my temperature was not above 98.6, I was going to school. So there was nothing, like there was no fooling. I remember watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off going, well, I mean, his parents are idiots. Yeah. My mom would never.
That wouldn't have happened under her watch.
Would not have happened under her watch at all. And so much so that she sent me one time. I may have told this story on the show. I'm sorry if I have. But when I was 9, I was 9 years old. My dad traveled a lot for work. She was still nursing, and so she had a summer camp for a couple weeks. That I had to go to, like 3 weeks. That was like a day camp kind of a thing. Yeah. And it was at a church, and it wasn't at our church. It was a different church. It was even so it just seemed weird to me as a 9-year-old. Like, if you're a kid and you go to one church like all the time, and then like you go to a different one, like even though they're not really that different, you're not mature enough to understand the difference. It just feels off. And so I'm sure they're nice people. I have no ill will towards them, but I was one of the there were not many 9-year-olds there. There was a group of 5 of us, and the rest of the camp was my sister's age, and at the time she was 4.
Oh,
so that was most of it was kindergartners and first graders, and then there was it's unfortunate that you have your parents can't take you 2 places. This group of 9 and 10-year-olds were just all right. So they would make you do things
for little kids.
I'm doing macaroni art at 9. I'm like, look, I don't know if you guys have been to a 4th grade recently, but we're past macaroni art. And so I hated they didn't play sports very long because you're older kid, you're twice the size of I'm not going to play kickball with a 4-year-old. What are you talking about? So I was just bored. I hated it every second of it. I was like, I don't want to paint. When you sent me to Cub Scout camp, we went camping and did knots and there was knives. Come on, I'm making a donkey with noodles right now. Are you friggin' kidding me? So I was upset, and I did get sick. I got really sick. And on the way home that day where I had started feeling sick, I was like, I don't feel good. I really don't. And my mom's like, stop it. I'm tired of you.
So you're trying to get out of camp?
You've got 2 more weeks of this camp, and, then it's back to normal of, we had there were groups of families that would take the kids for a day and rotate through the summer. But, it's also the summer and they're on vacation. So you can't you have to have a camp week. It was all well organized by the families of Christ the King Middle School or elementary school in Bossier City. But So I was really sick. And so the next morning I got up and I'm like, I don't feel good. She's like, well, you don't have a fever. And I like in my mind, I'm like, crap. Okay. I mean, like, you never want to have a fever, but I'm like, I really don't feel
You wanted
good.
it that
like,
day.
I was very sullen and moody on the way there. And so I get there, and within an hour after she leaves, I just puked everywhere. Like, just one of those things that just, you know how you've had little kids. Like, when little kids like just don't like
the rotavirus type.
Yeah, but there's no like, you can't tell them like, hey, get to the trash can, get to the bathroom. You're just like, no, I have to throw up, and I'm going to throw up
wherever,
in the most convenient place for me. And so I was just like, I threw up, and then like walking to they're trying to get me to the bathroom, like threw up on the way to the bathroom. And so it was bad. And it's the only time in my life, even now at 44, it's the only time in my life my mother has felt bad about that. That's it. That's the only time. And she had to call my like neighbor to come and get me. And then I had to stay, like they stayed with me for a couple hours before she got back. And I will tell you, now that she's well distanced from the story and doesn't know, I was sick for about a week, but I was not sick for 2 weeks. But I played it up.
Oh, I bet.
And I did not go back to that day camp. I did not go back.
That was probably sympathy, too. She probably felt bad and was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to let him slide.
I kind of like made it like, clearly the day camp made me ill.
Mm-hmm.
What if they give me leprosy? I'll have to move away. I'm weak. Like, that was my thing. So, anyway, let's get into Deion Sanders and Colorado and this story about the PIF that came out in Sports Illustrated today. According to the story, Trevor Riley, who was their special teams coordinator, resigned, very clearly upset about his salary, which is $90,000 a year, which is a nice salary, but like for college football coaches, it's really on the lower end.
Right.
And so he resigned. I mean, he says that like there's no ill will or whatever, but in his letter that he wrote to them, he talked about his, like, when they made him the special teams coordinator, they did that in part so he could do what he did at Jackson State, which was hustle NIL dollars. Well, one of the things he did was he went over to Saudi Arabia or to the Middle East. I don't know if he went to Saudi Arabia or just met them somewhere else in the middle, like Dubai or something like that. But like he went over to Saudi Arabia. He met with those people. He had a deal apparently on the table, but Rick George and Deion Sanders did not pursue it. This is his letter. Like he said that you let that go. So, when you see Colorado pursues PIF fund from Saudis, I mean, it's true. Yes. Someone from Colorado did. Did Rick George and Deion Sanders? Not necessarily. He did that according to his letter of his own accord. Like, he went out and found it. And I'm sure he had permission and like from them to go do it because I'm not paying for a trip to Saudi Arabia.
No, he's got to,
Yeah. I mean, so, and they decided against it. Now, private equity's coming in.
It's inevitable.
It's coming in the Big 12. Brett Yormark told us as much, that anything would be there. And it is anybody who's mentioned with private equity in any kind of sports realm, it is the PIF because of sports washing and all that stuff. And so I get where people want to jump to the conclusion that Colorado was this, and Colorado's probably the perfect one to do it, kind of a thing in their heads because they are, to some people, in the villain role, which you can't be in the villain role when you're 4-8.
Right.
Like, that's not, you're not a villain.
No.
Yeah. And like there's a lot of prove it in Colorado right now. And so getting that kind of money behind their NIL would be program changing, obviously, but I also don't think that that's really that big of a problem for them based on who their coach is.
No,
right?
I feel like this is it's because it's Colorado. It's the lightning rod situation. If this would have been a program, I don't know, if this would have been Florida State or LSU or some, one of those programs.
Well, like Florida State took some flack for looking into it.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's going to have to do it. Somebody's got to be the first, right? And I think that it's garnering so much attention simply because it is Colorado. But the thing with me is there's been so much like distraction and turmoil around that program, and like you're bringing coaches in and you're not allowing them to do things, or if it's like this situation where you have this guy going out to find NIL dollars or find extra money and he goes and finds the income, like why not just pursue it? If that's your whole goal and you're sending somebody out to do it and they come up with it, then just be the first one. Embrace it. Yeah. Like you're already going to catch hell for it. But if you do it, that's all this is. Everybody's waiting on for that one person to pull the trigger. And once they do, everybody's going to do it.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that it's the Colorado and Dion that is garnering the flack for it, but it's coming. I think that everybody needs to kind of accept that. But it is going to be intriguing to see who actually steps out and is the first one to say, kind of like, I mean, it's almost kind of like the Bryles thing. Like who's going to hire it? Like who's going to be the first one? It's like that whole murky situation. But somebody's going to do it. I'm not surprised Colorado's involved with this. Other people probably are, and you're going to see more of them come out. But somebody's going to have to be the first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, somebody is going to have to be the first. I think the bigger issue isn't really with private equity. It's where that equity comes from. Like who are you going to go? And private equity very often comes from other places, which to me, like other places that are not America. And so I don't think that you're playing a dangerous game getting it from companies in America.
Yeah.
I think you're playing a dangerous game when you get it from outside of America too. You have to, Brett Yormark said it's got to be bespoke to the Big 12, and everybody needs to make sure that's what they follow. It's like, this is catered to us, and this is not, a private equity thing of somebody going in and like InBev or whoever it is that bought Budweiser. This is not that kind of a thing. This is a different animal altogether. But I do think that there needs to be public stands from the leadership of college football, that conference commissioners and the people in charge need to say, like, we don't have a problem with private equity. We have a problem with who is giving it to you.
Right.
And if it is somebody like Saudi Arabia, we don't need to go down that road. Now, where I'm concerned is that when that much of money is involved in anything, people's ideals get skewed.
Here's another thing that confuses me. We're seeing more and more across sports where leagues or anything are going outside of the United States to do their games. Like you want to go do things in another country to get money from them. Well, why not? If you can go do that, then why can't you get private equity from outside the country? What's the difference?
Well, yeah.
You're getting money from another country, right?
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
I agree with you. I mean, I think that. I mean and that's going to be the thing. I don't mind people getting money from other countries at all. Like that's how our economy works. Do
you also think somebody? All right. So like say Colorado is looking at this, and any school, put any school out there, but Colorado is the one we're talking about. They're looking for this, and they get a deal on the table
from the Saudis.
From all right, Saudi. Say the Saudis. Okay. You get a deal on the table. Is this something before you say yes as a institution yourself, you got to work it up the chain of command to, like you're saying a while ago with Yormark, how he was talking with us about it's got to fit what the Big 12 is. Do you think you have to run it up the chain of command to get approval before you can independently do it yourself?
Yeah.
Without causing a ripple effect within the conference or the division?
I think I do. I think you absolutely have to. I think you need to be very forward with where your money's coming from in this regard. And part of it is like, yeah, you don't want to. We shouldn't be just saying, well, they're trying to change. That's why they're investing. No, they're trying to get you to ignore things. Like Live Golf is the Saudis trying to get people to ignore what they do and why, and look, we're not if America went into a place and tried to do the same thing, I mean, it's not as egregious, but we've got things that we do too. I mean, we're no country is pure as the driven snow, but we are founded on certain ideals that I think that we need to, especially when it comes to something that's watched and loved by many people, at least try to keep those. You know, we one of my favorite interviews we've ever done was with Joe Kelly, who's
that was a phenomenal
host of the
interview.
Baseball Isn't Boring podcast and Major League Baseball relief pitcher, and it was fantastic. One of the things he said I didn't agree with. Now I get he wants new owners in baseball, and baseball probably needs some new owners.
Yeah, they need to freshen things up.
Like, you know, just guys that aren't old school when it comes to things. And he even said, like, well, I mean, golf's got that thing. Let's get some of those guys in here. And I'm like, I don't know if you don't want that, Joe, you know, because that's what that is. I just don't think it's good to involve world issues into sports, you know, in that level. Like, look, if you're mad that somebody's taking a social stand that you don't agree with, like, just look at, you know, how LeBron James had to back off of, like, criticizing China at all when he was over there because Daryl Morey said something that was true.
Yeah.
I mean, Daryl Morey didn't make up – this was not like a political slander of China about things that China may or may not do. It's something that China does and did, and Daryl Morey commented on it, and then, you know, China got mad at the NBA, and then LeBron, who had Space Jam Part 2 coming out, you know, capitulated. And I don't – like – I think that that's bad, you know, but I also know that he was sitting in China, and I probably would have been like,
you want to say what you say so you can get up out of there.
Yeah, like, you know, I mean, so it was a multi-layered issue, but look, like John Cena had to learn Mandarin so he could apologize to the people in China for calling Taiwan a different country.
What?
Yeah, you can look it up. Because he had a movie going out over there, and the studio's like, hey, you need to apologize to him or we're going to lose money. And
that's stupid.
Yeah, it's stupid. And don't think that the Saudis, you know, and here's the other thing. College kids have opinions, man. You make a deal with that, you are going to create an issue where you didn't have to. Like, you did not have to. And I think the other thing about going to a thing like a PIF is it's super easy. It's super easy to go and be like, look, I'm never going to meet one of these journalists, and I don't know these women, and I don't live over here. I'm never going to come over here. Like, it's out of sight, out of mind. You know, Nabisco could have murdered somebody. I don't know. You know, like I eat Oreos. Like, what's the difference? Like, you can morally equivocate.
I mean, look
yourself.
at Boeing. They kill people all the time.
Yeah, you can morally equivocate yourself to anything, right? For that amount of money that they're going to give you. And they'd be like, well, we won't have to worry about it ever. And then the minute that, you know, it hits your campus that you've done this, well, you're going to have a bunch of kids who didn't care about football at all, care a lot. Then you're going to have players on the team that are like, well, I don't like this. Nobody asked me. And then you're going to have other guys who are going to take that money. And then you're creating a rift. And look, you need to look no further than Live and PGA and see that there's a rift. There's a rift between the guys who stayed and the Live guys. Now, it's getting better. Like, I think there's some talk there, but I do think there's guys like Rory McIlroy who has probably ended some friendships because of it.
My thing is, like, if you do get the money from the PIF, are you using this for specifically NIL and players, or are you using this for, like, your facilities? Are you using this to make up with the gap between conferences? Like, how does that work? Like, how are you dispersing the money? To me, I think that could also impact how decisions going into it.
Yeah. But even still, it's blood money's blood money, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. You just make sure of who you're dealing with here and what their goal is. The Saudi Arabians are not out to make money on Colorado or Florida State or whoever they.
No, it's just Washington. It's laundering money.
Yeah, they're out to clean up their image. And so the minute that all right, you say you do it, and the starting quarterback after Shadur, comes out and goes, look, I'm not taking any of the PIF's money. I don't want it. I'm moral stand,
But there's a portal for that.
I mean, but you say that but you don't want to leave. So you're just taking your stand. You're taking your Colin Kaepernick stand, right? Where you're like, look, I know that there's things, but I'm going to say this. Mm-hmm. And then the coaches have to no comment something, or then these things create division where there doesn't need to be division. And that's why I think it's a bad idea to get involved. Like, just taking money from anywhere, it's just a, it's a slippery slope, and then it's like you see this in the movies, and I don't know how, like, totally true to life it is, but, like, there's a little town. I think of the movie Desperado with Antonio Banderas. He's, like, in this little town, and he's the guy who's out trying to get all the drug dealers. And then he finds out that, like, the drug dealer, a man who calls himself Bucho. That's how he said it in the movie. Bucho has just paid off the town, and he, like, does that. Yeah. So, it's all blood money, and, like, they were kind of looking the other way on it. That's where I think that it's got to be, let's not invite this in. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, once you invite it in, it's really hard to kick it out.
My thing is, like, also too, like, how do you not let it become a distraction from on the field? Mm-hmm. Because if you're constantly answering questions, like, Deion's going to answer questions all week long for the next 2 weeks leading up to their opening game about this crap. Like, how much of that becomes a distraction and seeks into your team? That's the other thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to talk a little trash on the chat room.
There you go.
Zona Tucson 93 says, I hope SMU beats Florida State. And I said, I hope you get a rock in your shoe.
I think SMU might get them. That'd be funny.
I'm worried about it. I'm worried about
you should be.
I'm worried about
you should be worried about Saturday. You better be worried about Saturday.
I worry about it all. I worry about SMU and Memphis, and Georgia Tech in a foreign country. I worry about them all. But, yeah, I think that like getting into that with the Saudis, to me, not worth it. Mm-mm. Not worth it. Because, okay, it's Saudi Arabia today. Who is it tomorrow? Who is the one who's like, oh, well, we're going to do this, or who's going to wash money through to you to do things? It's, we're like, you're volatile times right now, and somebody needs to take a stand. That's why I was so disappointed in the live golfers, not because, look, the PGA was not doing right by their players.
They were screwing them.
They're not doing right by their players. So these guys come along and have this opportunity to stick it to them. I get the desire to want to do that, but to do it like by going, well, that's all fine. What are you really doing? What are you really doing? Mm-hmm. What are you inviting in that you don't think that you'll be like, well, that's not really me. Like Phil is like, well, yeah, they did this and did that, but I don't really think about that. Well, okay. I mean, if you can make yourself not think about it, that's something you're gonna have to deal with later on. But still doesn't change the fact of where it comes from and what it's for, because again, the Saudi Arabian leaders and princes and all that don't give a crap about golfers.
No.
They don't. They're not trying to, like, they're not interested in making golf better. There's not guys sitting around in the palace going, you know what bothers me? That the PGA players really get screwed. Like, it's not an issue for them. Mm-hmm. That's not what this is about. And to think that it's about that is ultimately naive. Like, oh, I'm glad that, these guys came in and bailed us out. Mm-hmm. They really do have a concern for it. Yeah. They're nice guys. They're really, altruistic. They get a bad rap, and that all of a sudden that's where it becomes. That's what they're trying to do. And, it just, I mean, look, any deal in life, I'm sure there's really, like, successful people in business that watch our show and all of that. And know that, like, they know this, you're successful because you don't just take every opportunity that comes your way.
No, it's got to be right.
It's got to be right. And so you have to ask, the key in being really good at things, and that is finding out what you don't want to hear. Because a lot of times when it comes to this, people stop at hearing what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. So they don't ask the next question about.
Yeah, they're just toned out.
Yeah, about where's this coming from, or how do we make this work? What if this happens? They don't worry about all that because the shiny, like, the big bag of gold is sitting right there, and they're like, I mean, you're speaking my language. Well, look, I want to be a billionaire too, but I also know that that's not likely, and that if somebody comes along out of the blue who had no interest in something in the first place.
Yeah, there's something sketchy, yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, all of a sudden, like, never in the history of mankind have they taken an interest in this thing. Yet all of a sudden, they're like, you know what? We have so much money. We just like to give it to you because we've really become enthralled with your cause. We just want to invest in good things, and we think we can make money and you can make money, and it's good for both of us. And you're like, all right, what's a tight end? And then, like, those kind of things. Oh, we don't care about the details of things. We just, broad strokes. We're going to do this for a lot of people. We feel that sports is underserved or whatever. Yeah. That's where you have to really, really question things. Really, really question things. So if Deion didn't do it, like if they decided not to, Rick George and Deion, like, hey, more power to them. And they probably said, yeah, go over there and see because you're doing it. But I would have been uncomfortable the whole time, and maybe they got to that point where they were smart enough to ask the next question of like, well, what happens if this happens? And or are there things? Garrett, you and I have worked for a company like this where you kind of get to, are there things I don't want to know?
Yep.
And if there are things you don't want to know,
you should probably get out.
Then you probably need to get out.
Yeah.
Like even minor, like some things are like minor, but just like, I don't really want to know this. So because I know it, I think I need to go to a place where I don't have to worry about these things.
At the end of the day, when you look at this, was it even worth the consultation? Like, is it even worth wasting your time?
I don't think that it is. I don't think that it is. And we are instant gratification monetarily in society anyway. We're all about this right away. And that's what that provides. And the people that have that kind of money know that, and that's how they get you. That's how they get you in the web.
Yep.
Now you can work for all these years and then maybe get a 10th of this, a 20th of it. Or I could give you this
front you
right
now.
And you're like, well, it's easier this way. All my problems are solved generationally. Heck, I'll take it. And here's the thing. I sit up here and tell you all this, to say that I have no idea how I would react given the same situation. I'd like to think that I'd be, Mr. Super Patriot and, no, this is not who I am. This is not what I do. But I also know that I'm a human being and that, I'm prone to frailty, and I could cave.
It would be very difficult for anybody. You're naturally, especially if you come from poverty or you're in a bad situation and somebody throws it. Yeah, you're definitely going to think it's going to be easier and more tempting for you to take it than not to.
Yeah.
But my thing with Colorado is do you really even need it? Yeah. Do you really need it? Do you know, if they invest now, how, is Deion even going to be there after this year? Are they intrigued in Colorado because of him, the flash, and being attached to that? And then once that goes by the wayside, or if you take money and then somebody goes after them for that money in a roundabout way, however you want to get to that, then what?
Yeah.
Are you going to be? That's another thing. Can you be caught up in some stuff?
Here's the other thing. What happens? The other thing is when world in geopolitics here, what happens if our relationship as countries
That's what I'm
changes,
getting at.
Right? That's a good point, Garrett, because what happens if our relationship changes?
Yeah. Because that can happen anytime.
We and the Saudis are working towards a better situation, but I don't know what that really means. I don't know what we're asking of them or what they're asking of us or all of that. So if I'm at college, I do have to think about we could have this. We could have 12 great years of this, right? And then a president gets elected that they really don't like, somebody who doesn't like them back. Tensions in that area are high. I mean, they're high when they're low by their standards. So that's a high tension area. All of a sudden, our relationships change, and then that money could dry up because America makes you dry it up, or the Saudis take it away. Like, that's the other thing about it. I don't think this is as evergreen as it might seem. I don't know if it's really evergreen.
Well, also too, like from the standpoint of a college, if you took money like that for your academic program, what kind of ramifications is that going to have on your grants from outside things, or the negative impacts of if you have students overseas doing something? Like, there's just a lot of things.
There's again, those are the questions that you have to ask, but that they're blinding you from, because you'll just be like, oh, wow, I can have a jet?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Whoa. Well, I'll be long dead before any of this is really a problem.
Yeah.
I'll have generational wealth. Who cares? Wow. Look at that. Is that the beach house I've always wanted? Like, all these things go in your head like, oh, boy, G-Wagon. We've always wanted an outdoor kitchen.
Yeah.
A pool. The Playboy Mansion is up for sale. I'm buying it.
I'm taking it.
My grotto's already built in. Those kind of things happen, and then you, again, things change. Like, that's where it is. Things change.
Mm-hmm.
Politics are cyclical, and who's ever in the majority power here, who's ever over there, like, it could get better there and worse here. It could get better here and worse there, and then that could flip in a generation. It's not, to me, it's not worth the risk.
No.
China's clearly tried to do this. I think the NBA has tried to
did it collect last week? The NFL was talking about getting it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's coming.
It's coming. I mean, and look, the reason that they say China is it's the most people in a place. There's a lot of fans there we could find. They really love the NBA. Like, remember when Kobe Bryant got off the bus and he was like the most famous person in China, or non-Chinese person in China. I mean, so it's hard to say no. And the other thing is, I think some of these people are really hopeful that, and they think this, and maybe part of it's true, that by having these kind of international relations and doing these things, that you can maybe change some minds. Which I don't
think everybody's more connected now anyway. It's easier to do that.
Yeah, but I also think that, we have that Rocky IV idea of if I could change, you could change, anybody could change, and then the Russians are all cheering for him. Okay, that's great, Rocky. It's great. I love that. I believe that. But also, there's a practicality to it that I think doesn't exist. And again, this is not some sort this is not a Republican Democrat thing. This is This is an America thing of is this the best for us as a people, our student athletes, all of this? I think that's where the private equity from foreign countries has to go in. It's okay, well, what are these people's ideals? What are their goals as a society? And if they're in conflict with what are, and look, American ideals and are achieving those are not clean and not easy, and it's hard. It's hard to live up to those things. But one of the reasons we are one of the greatest countries in the world, if not the greatest, and a great place to live and be, is because we're founded on altruistic principles. We really are. Now, the pursuit of that is what makes it really, really, really difficult. But the pursuit of anything that's worth anything is always hard. And so taking the easy way it was never the American way to take the easy way. Never. We fought the British in the woods. That's how we said, all right, well, we're not going to be really good at this whole, let's all line up together and shoot each other, because they're just going to keep sending, guys. They don't care about them. They're just interchangeable. So let's make them, chase us. And then when they do that, they haven't figured out, like, maybe take the red coat off.
Yeah, divide and conquer.
Like we did, that's what the revolution was about. And it was about, it was about more than the status quo of how it had been and one person making a decision for all these people, so that's why I think it's, we've never been a shortcut country. This is me in like my love letter to America. We've never been that. Now, we're not great at it. Like nobody is. Like we're not great at it. We've stumbled along the way. We stumble every day. But we are built on something that means something, that really does, about, freedom for every man, woman, and child, and all these things. We are built on that. We're not perfect. We're not even close, but we get better over the generations. It's better today than it was in 1776. It's better today than it was in 1861. It's better today than it was in 1964. It's better. Now, is it as better as it needs to be? No. I don't know when that will be, because human beings go backwards to go forward sometimes. So I know this has not been about college football in general, like it normally should be, but I do feel strong enough about this.
If you're passionate about it, get it off your chest.
Yeah, passionate about it, and this is my show, so I do what I want. But like passionate about to say, in the intersecting world of college athletics, which is something that is so very American, because it's not the same in other countries. Mm-hmm. College athletics.
It's a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, but my point is college athletics is ours. Like other countries don't do college athletics like we do it. It's very, very different. And if we're going to let our thing be invested in by somebody else, I want it to still be our thing. As much as it's changed and all that, it is our thing. This is our thing. So we need to do it that lines up with us. So that's why I feel very strongly. And plus, I just felt that this story, and I know it is, like I've already seen it today, is going to be Deion wants Saudi money. But that's not necessarily the narrative. Case. Certainly somebody at Colorado was curious about it if this guy went over there and had a meeting with them and then feels like they left something on the table. So that's fine, but I think it's important to not paint the picture of Rick George and Deion Sanders are ready to sell to the PIF. That's not the case, because they clearly –
They would have.
They didn't.
If they were ready, they would have.
They didn't take the deal that this guy thought he had. That's in his letter. That's the story. Colorado has not confirmed nor denied any of this yet. They've no commented on it, which leads me to believe that there's something there, at least a little bit. And, it's going to be what it's going to be for them public relations-wise when they figure out how to respond to this, which eventually they kind of do.
Oh, they're going to have to.
They're going to have to. I know that no commenting is the
It's going to be a Friday news dump.
No commenting is the first wave of, let's see how long this sticks around. And then if it goes away, then they don't really have to. But I just have a feeling Sean Keeler's
That's what I was about to say. I want to see Sean Keeler on this.
Sean Keeler's going to ask about it.
I hope so. God, I hope so.
He's going to ask. That's why, there's all of, all these things. And so while I didn't get into X and O's and all that stuff today, I just saw this story hit and I was like, man, I feel like I need to give my thoughts on it so that we look at it, we can try to look at it from a practical worldview. And one of my soapboxes that I have is, I thought this when I was a kid. When you go to take a standardized test and there's not history on it, I was always like, well, why not? Like, I just spend just as much time during my day on history as I do on math and reading and science, and history and science aren't on there. It's math and reading. And I get that those are the two more important skills, because you need to go out in the world and do at least functional math and functional reading. But I think it also shows like where our education, like where they decide to like cut things and point things. And look, when you start cutting one thing, you start cutting it all. And eventually reading and math will be like 2 + 2 = Jesus.
They're trying that.
Yeah, I mean, they try to do that. So it's not like, we should be teaching these things. And I think people don't, I see it every day. People do not have an understanding of the history of the world and of the places that they live. They have little dots of it. And then you can take those little dots and like try to all shove them into one spot when it's not that at all. No. So when we're talking about, because I do think like there's a lot of people, a younger generation now who thinks America is just like, oh my God, it's so terrible here. I'm like, yeah, look, this is not 1994 where it's a pretty badass time, right? Like we were all pretty happy in 1994. Like pre-Y2K, things were like pretty bitching. Like, things were going well. Mm-hmm. Like it seemed like that's where we were. And then, things happened. 9/11 happened. Like that changed our worldview for this generation because our generation never seen anything like that. And then, and I think people don't understand it. So in the whole wide realm of things, how this all of a sudden ties back into a college football team and the Colorado Buffaloes and Deion Sanders is fascinating because how did we got here is important. And why this is happening is important and why it's a bad thing to just take big money from someone, no strings attached. Yeah. There's never no strings attached. No. There's going to be a string because I promise you, Saudi Arabia is going to throw somebody off a roof and it's going to be a big story and somebody's going to comment on it and then they're going to have to be like, oh, we don't need to do that.
It wasn't them. We got it from.
So that's just how it is. So I know this show was maybe too talky and college lecture kind of a thing, but I felt really strongly about it. I feel really strongly about it. And again, admittedly so, the PIF has never come to me and tried to buy me. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what would happen. I have no idea I think I would say no. I think.
I don't know.
I think I would say no. But I would have to say no very publicly so that somebody else that thinks I'm worth that much would make it whole for me.
Then we're going to counter offer you.
I'd have to hold a press conference and be like, listen, the PIF came and they would like to sponsor the triple option. I understand that this is America's favorite sports podcast. I want to keep it that way. And because of the deeply American ideals that I hold, I am turning down their hundreds of millions of dollars. I am turning it down. You hear that, America? Other rich Americans? I am turning it down. But I'm worth that much.
Come at
Clearly, they think so. Please, please, please make a counter offer so that my wife doesn't hate me.
Yep.
Please, please. I can only get on I disagreed with them morally for so long. I have about a month before it comes back up again. So please help me. Please, 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 please.
Hey, please.
Yeah. That's what I would do. I am doing this for America, for the red, white, and blue, for George goddamn Washington. That's who I am doing this for. That's what I want. Paul Revere appeared to me in a dream and said, don't do it.
That's a good line. That's a pretty damn good line.
Last night, I woke up and all of a sudden I was in Massachusetts, and a man on a horse rode up to me and he said, "Hey, Paul, my name's Paul too." And I'm like, "Hey, cool, Paul Revere. Oh man, you're a pretty crafty little dude." And then he's like, "Yeah, don't take that Saudi money," and then he just rode off.
So ironically, since you're talking about Massachusetts, did you see your buddy Sean Stellano?
Oh, yes, I did.
Did you see that?
Red suit, black
hat. Bro, he looked clean.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Get his own day at Salem. I didn't know he was from Salem. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no. I asked him if he would be my agent when we were there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was on the air or if it was just when we were talking.
I think it was before we went on.
And then he's like, "Well, it's not really my, you're not a quarterback." And I was like, I could be. I would want him to be one of my agents. Like, where
definitely.
He walks in, I just want to walk in and be like, "Oh, my agent, Sean."
Yeah.
Like, that would make me feel good. Yeah, so absolutely. So, no. So thank you all for bearing with me today through what was longer than I intended to go on this. And we didn't take a break. I absolutely went on a long discussion and like a soliloquy, so to speak, with you, Garrett, of all this and how I feel, because I feel strongly about it. And I want there to be something. If somebody looks this up, how should I feel about the Saudis, and watches this and gets a different perspective, then I'll feel better about myself.
Right.
No one probably will, but
somebody will.
At least I'll know that I've spoken my piece.
You've done your part
in a long form situation, and not that I did. So also we had a dog in here earlier, and I'm in a good mood. So,
yeah, you were.
Yeah.
Satellite Sally made you happy.
Oh yeah, we had Satellite Sally in here. Emery's very upset because he walked in 5 minutes after they left.
Yep.
I'm gonna try to get one of these dogs one of these days. He's gonna be like, just leave him here. Just leave him here.
Studio dog.
Him.
Just rotate, taking it home.
Just want to take this dog. You can foster, Emery. You can foster. It's less of a commitment. It's like the Tinder of dogs. Yeah, you can foster. So, but yeah, I do that. So, let's see. Jim says Burt Convoy was a pretty good Paul Revere, but didn't resemble the painting of Paul. Is he the guy who played him in the old TV show? Maybe, I guess. So,
not sure.
I went. I'll tell you. If you ever go to Boston,
I want to go to Boston.
You ever go to Boston, you'll love it. I have no idea how much it cost because my mom got it for me as a gift because we were there together. But we took a private tour, a history tour of Boston.
Ooh.
And he just like drive right up to things because he had a pass, which is a thing in Boston, probably in Philly too.
Probably, I'm sure. I think they had them in DC when I was there, like the passes.
So you can get them and they just take you to the places you go up. And so, especially if you're not there for very long, it's a good thing to do where if you can't go into a place for an hour or whatever, you can go see it. And this guy gives you he was a history professor in town, and there's a lot of them in Boston, as you know. It's like university city. But he had done a lot of his research on Paul Revere. Paul Revere was his favorite. So we went to Paul Revere house. We were there for like an hour because he was like,
giving you the details.
He waited for the tour that was there to walk into the house, and he said, "Listen, Dennis is fine. Let me tell you."
He did it like that.
let me tell you what the real, here's the real things about, here's the things they don't have time for. And then people are like, "Oh, look, is that a loom?" Those deals. He's like, he gave us the whole run on Paul Revere. And so I've always thought about that, how interesting a fellow, a Renaissance man that Paul Revere was. So, but yeah, I definitely think so. Let's see. Paul says, give Jordan Wari a call and tell him I told you to call him. He's a close friend. Oh, okay. I'll do that. So, but yeah, I think these, I hope maybe I shifted your worldview a little bit. I think I'm more optimistic about the world than you are, Garrett.
Probably. I'm not a very optimistic individual.
Yeah. No, I get it. Look, I'm not a lot of time either, but when it comes to things, because I'll just tell you, when you're looking at things that are going on in the world and you're worried about them or you're not worried about them, or you're worried and this is stressful and all this, especially in America, we're a pretty good job of there'll be a different time. It's coming around. That's the kind of beauty of our system is we've set it up to where we don't like a guy, 4 years, gone. Don't like the next one, 4 years, try it again. We're not stuck with anybody. Mm-hmm. I think we forget that. We're not stuck with anyone. None of these people we're stuck with. And there's forces out there that try to keep us stuck with them. But if you just woke up and said, you know what, I don't like this clown anymore, they don't have to have the job anymore.
Right.
Their contract is 2 years, 6 years, 4 years. And then for some reason, life.
Yeah, that's
that one
stupid.
doesn't make any. That only makes sense to me in the context of no one thought when they made that rule about the Supreme Court that there'd be 97-year-old Supreme Court justices.
Everybody was dying at 60.
Yeah. I mean, for life. I mean, he died when he was 54. He had a good long life.
Now.
He was killed by arthritis.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. I absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, so that's that's what I'm going to. That's where I'm going to leave my soapbox for the day. Today on the show, we've got Adam Rittenberg and John Machota. I'm going to work on another guest. We're thinking we're going to have the new Houston athletic director today. That is going to be tomorrow. Smokey's out for the next couple days as he prepares for football season and gets his mental health break, which you would say, hey, why did you just let him do that? But like, listen, it's for all our mental health. This is a crazy time, the early part of the high school football season coming up. So Smokey is off the next couple of days. Craig and I will be here. And then we're all back together on Monday for week 1. But Craig and I will talk about, there's a lot of things to talk about clearly today.
Today's been a hell of a day.
We may not need the whole, the first hour, we might be able to just kind of roll through. So there's a lot to talk about. So that's going to do it for us. We'll see you in an hour later on.